Hello, this is John Stevenson from Zone Performance Psychology, and today's topic is breathwork. I'm going to take a little step back and just, when we talk about breathwork, I find that a lot of goalies, particularly in these difficult times during the pandemic, if they can't be on the ice surface, what can they do to continue to work on their game during this downtime? And in fact, when hockey hopefully resumes shortly, we can come back even stronger. Well, one of the things that we can do, we've talked a lot about, you can go to your dryland training gym and you can do body weight workouts. You can do core, leg, upper body. If you are on the ice, you're working on your RVH or your shuffling or your head trajectory, technical things. But often when I speak with kids and I'll say, look, what are you doing on a daily basis? And I can't emphasize that word enough, daily basis, to work on your mental game. What are you doing in your mental gym? And I know for a lot of people, they've never heard of that term. And I don't put the mental part of the game, even though I'm a sports psychologist, I don't put the mental game any more important than the physical or the technical or the tactical. It's a balanced approach to our training. So the three pillars that I really work with when it comes to the mental part of the game is mindfulness, breath work, and mental rehearsal. Breath work, I'm sure a lot of people have heard a lot of different things in the last couple of years. I got introduced to it many, many years ago, about a decade ago, maybe even longer, with heart rate variability. And from a goalie's perspective, one of the things that I love about breath work, I call it hype number. So hype number is 0, you're asleep, and 10, you've had 900 Red Bull. And there's all sorts of different types of breath work around the world. Breath of fire, the Wim Hof, oxygen advantage, heart rate variability, box breathing. There's all these wonderful, phenomenal breath work techniques. But from a goalie's perspective, one of the things that I love about it is we can learn, different breath works can help us to get into our ideal performance state, which I call hype number. Some goalies need to be more pumped up. Some goalies need to be more calm, especially for their workouts or practices. So what I want to do is show people these are all sorts of different breath work that we can do throughout the day, before our practices, during our practices, after our practices, before, during, and after our games, that can help monitor our emotional state better. There's so many benefits to breath work, being able to get a better quality sleep, restorative sleep, getting better blood flow, better oxygen to the brain and to the muscles so that we can recover more quickly, being able to manage our emotions more effectively. For me, breath work is a key with regards to being able to focus. I use it in a lot of ways to our breath as an anchor. So there's so many health benefits, but there's so many performance benefits to breath work. When I talk about breath work, one of the key things that I like to bring it into is I call it the emotional state management triangle. So there's 3 things that really ultimately determine how we feel at any given time. And if I can use an example right now, let's use the pandemic. So, and this can specifically relate to hockey. So one of the first things that determines how we feel at any given time is what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on? So, for example, I had a goalie from junior A goalie the other day, where right now, pretty much every day, his coach is coming in and berating him and putting him down, negative comments, negative behavior. And if all I'm doing is thinking about something that's directly out of my control. So, for example, right now, there's been a lot of leagues that have been shut down. And if I tend to think about or focus on things that I have no influence on, well, guess how that's going to make me feel? For some guys, it's going to be mad, frustrated. Other guys are going to feel really sad, feel down, depressed. Other people are going to feel, really anxious, worried. So one of the things we want to do is make sure that we're focusing on things that we have direct control over. And I often remind goalies, we got to bring it back to what's important now. And I've even had some goalies put that inscription on the inside of their blocker or on their stick, just to remind them, win, what's important now. What are the things that we have direct control over? And emphasize that word, I call it control the controllables. If I start to bring my attention, my awareness to things that I have a direct influence over, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but it gives us a lot more hope and a lot more confidence that we can make a change. So that's one of the things that determines how we feel at any given time. The other thing that a lot of people, I think this is a kind of a sneaky thing, but the other key component that determines how we feel at any given time is our language. How are we describing things? What is our self-talk? What is our internal dialogue? And, for example, I learned this a long time ago. Nothing has meaning except the meaning that you give it. So I always like to, have a little fun story in saying that, is there such thing as a big game? Is there such thing as a big tryout? Well, no, the puck doesn't know it's a big game. The ice surface doesn't know that it's a big game. The goalposts don't know that it's a big game. But if we're describing it that way, that's where we can start to put pressure on, unbeknowing, putting pressure onto ourselves. So we have to be very, very careful how we describe things. Like, so for example, today in Edmonton, if you had 100 people and you asked them to describe the weather, you're not going to get the same response from everybody. And that's going to have a huge influence. How we describe things is going to have a huge influence in terms of how we feel at any given time. Well, we've talked about the first two. One, what are we thinking about? What are we focusing on? Two, how are we describing things? Like even, for example, like ball drills, when we start to do juggling, and I hear kids right off the bat go, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard. Well, right off the bat, just listen to your internal dialogue. And if you're saying phrases like that, it's not even so much the words that you say, but it's the picture that the words create in our mind's eye. And because the subconscious part of our brain can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined, well, now the brain just runs the program. The subconscious just accepts whatever the conscious mind tells it, and it just runs the program. So we have to be very careful. I would almost say monitor what we say to ourselves and how we describe things to ourselves. But then the third component, breath work, breathing, and our physiology, how we, emotion is created by motion. How we're moving, how we're breathing can have a huge immediate impact on how we feel at any given moment. If we have a lot of carbon dioxide, if we're breathing shallow, if we're breathing rapidly, and again, that's one of the things that can have a huge, impact on our mental, our emotional, our ability to focus in the moment. So breath work, this is where we can take conscious control of how we can influence how we feel at any given time.